And I'm looking at this person in front of me, Aaron. I'm watching his face transform into a face I don't recognize. And so now I follow a diet that's very useful for me. Now you're all up to date. Do I still eat kimchi? Surround me and start kicking me to death. I'm processing stuff. And I think to myself, is this a placebo? I went from feeling uncomfortable in my body, aches and pains, inflammation, to then feeling kind of alive, actually pretty good when I first initially turned vegan because I cut out all the processed foods. Okay, I should probably mention that some things have changed. I've only just realized that the vast majority of you aren't following me on Instagram, and so you're not up to date with present events. I've been asked the question quite a bit here and there because I am kind of spilling the beans a little bit in every video that I post now and then. Hey Ryan, are you still a vegan? And I'm not. I'm not a vegan, and there's a very good reason for this. I've spoken about this at length on Instagram, so for those of you who are following me over on Instagram, you already know the story. But essentially, I'm making this video just to update you all on my progress in terms of finding a diet that works for me. Okay? I'm not making this video to try to convince you. I am not making this video to start any debates in the comment section. And if you're gonna hate on me for the choices that I've made and say, hey Ryan, why are you killing all these animals and what may have you, just don't even bother, because I'm not going to entertain that kind of behavior because I feel really, 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 really good. Now, for you to understand why it is that I did this, and more specifically when I did this, you have to understand a little psychedelic substance called ayahuasca.
Missionaries who described it in the 1700s claimed it serves for mystification and bewitchment. But the origins of this botanical beverage trace back much further to the earliest indigenous inhabitants of the Amazon basin. Today, it's a trendy trip in mainstream drug culture, but also a promising key for unlocking new potential of the brain and mind. This is ayahuasca.
You see, a lot of you saw my experiences at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. There they host these ayahuasca retreats. And so that was some years ago. I can't even remember. Let me just find it on my phone. Oh my God. Holy. That was a long time ago. 6 years already. Here's the playlist. I even look very different in that thumbnail right there. Full on vegan. I'll get to that in a sec. But essentially, 6 years ago, I went to Rhythmia. You can watch the whole story there. I did like a series on them. And during one of the nights that I partook in an ayahuasca ceremony, the ayahuasca told me to eat meat. And I, being vegan for around 8 years at that time, swiftly declined. I said no. Heck no. The idea made me want to vomit, made me want to be sick. I didn't want to partake in eating meat. I had, up until that point, intentionally, mentally conditioned myself through years of watching videos online of animal abuse, documentaries, and doctors online. Doctors telling me that eating meat was bad. And again, I'm not making this video to convince you. I'm just telling you my side of the story. I knew that there was some doubt within a lot of what I was watching, that I didn't have to believe in everything, but I chose to believe in it anyway because I was sold on the idea that there was a perfect diet out there that was gonna make me feel like Superman. And well, veganism is all the rage nowadays. Let's throw myself into it, and I did. I'm grateful I did. I'm grateful I did because I learned a lot, and I'll talk about that later too. Because I'm not opposed to eating specific plants or what may have you. They have their role in a person's diet. Again, I'll tell you that in a second. But essentially, I conditioned myself out of the diet that I was in because I was feeling crappy and miserable. I was eating processed foods, as well as meat. And I was feeling tired and I didn't want to age really fast and fall apart. So I thought, let's go super clean, let's go vegan, let's not put any death into the body, therefore I should only emit and radiate life, right? But then here's this intelligence in my bloodstream telling me to just throw all that out the window and partake in eating meat. I said no. And then I went a whole year without taking any ayahuasca. And then Rhythmia emails me and asks me to come out again. And so I do. I arrive, I take the ayahuasca, and on day 3 of vlogging my experience, during that trip, ayahuasca asked me again to partake in eating anything from an animal. It could be anything. In order for me to progress within the next day's ceremony, because every day for 4 days we partake in an ayahuasca ceremony. Yeah, so this is day 3. It's saying, hey, for you to really get the most out of tomorrow's ceremony, you have to eat something from an animal. I don't right away say yes. I spend most of the night thinking about it. And then in the morning, I sprint to the cafeteria before the other YouTubers show up. Because I knew they were going to put me on blast and then show me to their audience eating whatever it was that I was going to eat on that morning. So I got there quickly. And they actually did the same thing that I thought they were going to do to me, to another YouTuber who also broke her vegan streak. I won't mention her name. But essentially, I got there first. I took myself a fried egg, chucked it on the plate, stared at it for like 20 minutes. I smelled it like an animal smells something. I get it, I eat it. I automatically feel like throwing up. I don't like it, but I force it down, mostly because I don't want to be caught in the act eating something that on my channel I claim that I don't eat. Yeah. I mean, heck, up until that point, I didn't eat it. That was that. But then, and I'm going to speed up here because I don't want to take up too much of your time. During that night, night 4, during the ayahuasca experience, ayahuasca meets me during this visionary state, congratulates me in its own silent way on eating something from an animal, and then proceeds to show me one of my past life experiences. He does this in the most horrific way. I'm lying down next to Aaron Dowdy. Victor, if I can remember, is behind me up towards my left. Yeah. Lior is on the far end of the room, and Gavin as well on the far end of the room. And there are other people all around me. There's about 60 of us, and I'm lying there. And I thought I closed my eyes. Well, yeah, I thought I closed my eyes, but I guess not. Because all of a sudden, they're still open. And I'm looking at this person in front of me, Aaron. I'm watching his face transform into a face I don't recognize. I start feeling all of a sudden like everyone is looking at me all at once. And so I look around me and everyone starts to morph into someone else. They stand up, surround me, and start kicking me to death. Again, I thought I closed my eyes. But everything seemed like one continuous experience from the moment I laid down. I go to cover my head, and then everything around me changes. I'm in the middle of an old, kind of like a western town, but it's nighttime. It doesn't look so cinematic. This looks real, like I'm being transported back to a specific point in history where they had just mud roads and there was some straw sticking out of the roads because they didn't know how to quite clear the roads properly. Horse and carriage type deal, you know what I mean? I just saw people, the same people that were kicking me, but now they were dressed properly. not in all white, but in their I don't know, 16th century garments. As I look up through a crack in the crowd, I see a man in his store holding a pitcher of milk. He's looking at me, he's smiling, he's offering it to me as if to say, "Come here. I feel like I know this man." I can't actually see his face, I just see smile, his teeth, and I see glasses and a mustache and a top hat. Everything else is transparent. There's literally nothing there. It's just these parts of his face are just floating there. And he's wearing a very nice, almost like a barber would wear a vest, right? With the bow tie. And he says, "Come here." And I come towards him. And then he shifts back into the darkness of his shop, closes the door, and I feel betrayal. And then I'm beaten and stoned to death. And I die right there. I come to freaking out, look around. Everyone's exactly where they should be. And they are who they should be. I go to the shaman. I have a question. He doesn't want anything to do with me. And then this other guy, an assistant shaman, comes up and tries to listen to me, but he doesn't quite understand what I'm going through. The next day I catch the shaman. He flew all the way from Colombia, I believe. I might be wrong, but I think it was a while ago. I think it was Colombia. I catch him as he's trying to escape into his his room. And I stop him, and I feel like there's something in him that makes him stop and recognize me as a person worth speaking to all of a sudden. Because usually he's trying to avoid people. This time he treats me like a normal person and listens to me. And he says to me, "Oh, that was a past life. And you had to go through that in the astral plane in order to finish dealing with that experience." That's why the ayahuasca wanted me to partake in eating animal. And anything from an animal, basically, whether it's eggs or chicken or anything. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm still not going to eat this stuff. I just needed to do it for that one experience. But then I got curious over the next few years. Remember, this was 6 years ago. Possibly a year later, I find myself very much still, walnut cracked open, feeling like I'm tripping out because I've taken so many different types of psychedelics. I've experimented in so many different types of ways. I'm thinking, I'm literally tripping off of food itself, normal foods. I can eat blueberries and all of a sudden I feel high. And I think to myself, in front of my fireplace in my cottage in England, what if I just partake in eating some chicken? Yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of chicken, but let's try it anyway, see what happens. I go to the store, buy myself some organic chicken. I bless it in salt water. I pray over it over the period of a whole day. I make it a literal ritual. And then that night I eat it, and all of a sudden all this stuff comes up, this personal stuff about particular people, I won't mention them here, that were connected to the food throughout my past. And I find myself just crying. I'm processing stuff, and I think to myself, is this a placebo? Is this happening because I expect it to happen? Like, what's going on here? And then I start eating, but I swear, like I swore against bacon, sausages. I start eating other types of meat just to see, right? Not every day, nothing like that. Every few months, something, a small portion, just to see what effect it would have on my psyche. And then I think to myself, I should probably decondition myself from not liking this type of food, because that's a low vibration in and of itself, feeling disgust and hatred and just general negativity towards things in general. I put a pin in it and I moved to Bali. In Bali, most of the people that I met there were eating fish, including the people near the beach resorts. I was kind of reluctant, but I tried it anyway. And as I started eating fish, my brain woke up. The brain fog cleared. And I realized that I hadn't even realized that I shifted into a state of brain fog because it was so gradual over the years, until I put that piece of fish in my mouth and I suddenly feel better. People around me that were also vegan did the same thing. They had the same experience. We started to openly talk about how fish is actually really important for the brain. I knew this growing up. growing up. I knew this growing up. My mum would constantly stress about having my cod liver oil tablets, and I was a fan of salmon. I start to open my mind up again to the idea of eating meat. At this point, I'm pretty much a pescatarian if I'm not experimenting with other types of meat. It's hard and it's weird, and people start falling out with me because they have a difference in opinion. And I just feel like someone who's experimenting. I keep this on the down low on purpose. I don't tell people, are you crazy? I tried on Instagram. Part of me did feel guilty. And actually, I didn't try, I did. I made quite a few lives about this experience over the years. A lot of you were supportive. A lot of you just disappeared on me. But hey, I get it. I get it. Sometimes we subscribe to people because we can relate to them, right? It's very rare that we'll subscribe to someone that we don't relate to. Because what's the point? I find the point usually is to self-reflect on why we subscribe to people in the first place, you know, and maybe if you're just aware enough to see if perhaps you're being introduced to a new concept outside of your normal way of thinking, because you might need to change something within your life. That's just how I was thinking at the time. I was much more open to listening to other people's differentiating opinions on their YouTube channels, and really started to question my own life in a lot of ways. And then, COVID hit, and I went from not believing in COVID to then believing in it to not believing in it to just watching my mind and my ego and my personality just kind of go with the tides of the community around me in Bali. And I didn't get COVID for 3 years. I got it here in the States. My whole family got it. But the reason why I bring that up is because over the last it's been a couple of years since then, but over the last, let's say 4 to 5 years, I've really settled with the fact that my mind was so suggestible in the past. And I think everyone's kind of figured this out too. And I would invite you to also self-reflect and think. Because it's a moment in our history where our generation and the generation online can really see how influential they actually are. And you can kind of just step outside of that and no longer be so easily swayed by the majority of the public. I say all that to say that whilst in North Carolina, I left Bali, right? In Bali, I partook in fish and eggs. Whilst in North Carolina, the crazed carnivore diet had slowly started to die down with the fall of the Liver King. Everyone finding out that he took steroids, yeah? At this point, I'm pretty open-minded to putting other meats into my body. I'm still eating clean, no processed foods. I go carnivore for a month and 2 days because the first 2 days of my diet, I messed it up. And so I did an extra few days to make up for those first 2 days. When I tell you that my body woke up, unless you've done this, it can be really hard to understand the effects that specific meats have on the physical body. Again, I'm not making this video to convince anyone, so I won't break into the hard science because other people have done a great job at doing that. But when I tell you I got up one day and I could move my bones, I was gliding inside my body, and not just my brain woke up, but my body woke up. My muscles toned themselves up, my face plumped itself up, the color came back to my skin. I came alive. My hair became so thick and moisturized. I came to life. I kind of felt like a little bit of a silly belly, but look, I had to be vegan because I had to learn of ways to detoxify my body. I still do those. I have a vast knowledge now on plants and how they heal the body. Plants heal the body, definitely. So you should keep them into your diet. Meats, fats in meat run the body. Plants heal, fats run the body. If you have a balanced diet, everything works out. Yeah? What was making me feel sick and tired in the beginning wasn't meat. It was processed foods. I went from feeling uncomfortable in my body, aches and pains, inflammation, to then feeling kind of alive, actually pretty good when I first initially turned vegan because I cut out all the processed foods. I went from looking healthy during that transitional phase into veganhood to then even older than I actually was, to then back to, well, looking healthy again. Again, I don't want to convince anyone, but now you know. I also tried, during the carnivore diet, once I broke it, because I understood that it wasn't something I was supposed to do for a long period of time, but once I broke it, I tried changing my diet to now incorporate veggies and carbohydrates that were extremely low in histamic activity, histamines. Histamines are naturally generated by the body. They allow the body to swell up as water, fluid, pulls to the area that's damaged in order to protect it from pathogens within your bloodstream. Yeah? Like allergies, for example. Swelling in the throat, because that's where the body believes the problem is. However, you can stockpile too many histamines in the liver and in other areas of the body. If you're particularly allergic to everything, you have too many histamines in your body, too much histamic activity. And so I thought to myself, now that I know processed foods are completely out, I shall eat liver, only a small amount, I don't need much, just enough to be satiated in the moment. Same thing when it comes to beef, certain cuts of the beef. I don't eat a whole lot. And the remainder of my diet shall be that which is low in histamic activity, low in histamines. Same thing with the fruits. I learned whilst vegan that really, really sugary fruits aren't good for me. They make me feel weird in the head, all kind of nauseous and disorientated. They change the color of my skin a little too much, and I crash fatigue way too often. I actually started to intuitively understand that whilst I was vegan, switching out a lot of the sugary fruits such as mangoes and papaya and bananas for kiwis, honeydew, cucumbers as a vegetable, but I'm leaning more towards things that are just less sugary. Watermelon, for example. And so now I follow a diet that's very useful for me. Now you're all up to date. Do I still eat kimchi? I know I had a whole series on on making probiotics and the many fails that I encountered during then and the many successes. But now I tend not to eat it so much, or at all actually, because of bloating. It tends to bloat me quite a bit. And so, yeah, that's it. Take care. I'll speak to you all pretty soon. Peace.